Give us this perspective from Spelman's point of view, from your students' point of view. How do they afford college these days? And is this really sustainable? Because the price has been going up, and we've seen the debt's been going up as well.
Yeah, so thank you very much. It's such an important question. Spelman College is a private college, and so different than public institutions, we don't have access to some of the resources that you might have at a school that had a large state appropriation. So, there are probably 2 or 3 ways in which you can have an impact. First of all, getting more scholarship support broadly. 40% or more of our students are Pell eligible, so they come from some of the lowest social economic status families and do get Pell grants through the federal government. Dollars for Pell Grants have been increasing, so we hope that our nation will continue to be generous when we think about federal support for college education. The other way is obviously for us to be able to raise more private dollars to be able to give scholarships. And, it's one of the things that is my highest priority, to continue to work to get the kind of resources, add to our endowment, so that we can provide more scholarship aid to our students. Upwards of 75% of our students get some sort of financial aid, either through federal dollars, through our own institutional, through corporate sponsorships, et cetera. So we have to continue to think about how do we make that scholarship support available. We also help students with work-study programs, and those are also incredibly important. But the biggest thing is that costs continue to go up. Supplies continue to go up. What we need to pay our faculty and our staff to be able to meet the needs of today's world. So, while it's hard to contain the cost, I think there's a lot more that we can do to provide support so that our students don't graduate with huge debt,
right.
All while they're trying to start families, start a career, buy their first homes. So that's, my priority number one.
Well, I'd love to talk about the costs that you're facing on your end, because we often have these conversations about tuition, and people point at tuition and say, how could it be so high? And you take a look at Spelman, for example, I believe it costs close to $50,000 a year for on-campus tuition. But what costs have you seen?
Not just for tuition, so right. That's all in, including room and board.
Right, so on campus, of course, we're talking about there. But tell us about what cost rises that you're dealing with on your side of the equation, and how you basically get at that tuition level.
Yeah, so we are very tuition dependent. So although we have tried over the last few years, we actually did a resetting of our tuition to actually decrease it a few years ago, and now steadily are adding small increases over time to keep up with the costs. So the costs are, as I mentioned, just the cost of supplies, the cost of meal services, the cost of paying our salaries so that we can continue to have the kind of excellent professors and retain them, and the excellent administration, because the cost of living is going up for everybody, and we've got to be able to keep pace. And of course, for academic institutions, human capital costs are the largest portion of our expenditure. So, that's a big part of it. We live in a world where we're continuing to have higher and higher rents, higher and higher overall living expenses, and we've got to be able to keep pace with that.
Right. Dr. Gayle, here at Bloomberg, we talk about expense. We also talk about investment. And it's been long thought that a college education is an investment. I wonder about the payoff of that investment that you're seeing for Spelman students as they graduate. What's the job opportunity situation? And is it shifting the curriculum you have to make sure that they really are in demand in the job market?
Well, yes, yes, and yes. So first of all, we are proud that we were rated this year, U.S. News and World Report, as the #2 school for social mobility. So that means that our students actually get a good return on their investment. They go out and they do better. They have great economic futures, and they continue to have more opportunity. we put a big focus on making sure that our students are career ready or ready to go on to graduate education if that's what they choose. We work very closely throughout their school years to give them those skills, not only the technical skills, but also the soft skills that will make them very marketable in today's world. We have a program called Braven, for instance, that is obligatory for all of our students, which is a career readiness program that is already shown throughout the country at different schools how much being part of that program and learning those skills, those job skills, makes them so much more marketable. So it's a big focus for us. We know that we've been able to do a good job. And as you mentioned, it's so important that we're looking at the skills that people will need in today's job market. Artificial intelligence, as an example.
Right.
Our students have to understand new technologies if they're going to be ready for tomorrow's job market. And so we want to give them those kinds of skills, core skills that will allow them to be marketable not only for today, but far into the future.
Dr. Gayle, I don't want to let you go before I ask about that decision from the Supreme Court last year on admissions, particularly taking into account race and admissions, particularly you as the head of perhaps the most prominent HBCU. How has it affected your admissions process?
Well, I think it's too early to tell. That's a recent decision. But I think, we have seen increase in our applications over the last few years. And I think it's both some of the impact of the Supreme Court decision, but I also think it's the years that came before, the George Floyd, post-George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. I think that it has changed the way young people feel about being in an environment that's nurturing, that they know that they are valued, that they see people that reflect who they are, understand the cultures that they came from. So I think we're seeing across the country increases in applicants to HBCUs. And I do think that the Supreme Court decision had a chilling effect, whether or not it's yet had the time to have a practical impact. But I think it has had a chilling effect on students and feeling like they want to be in a place where they feel that they are welcome, nurtured, and are able to authentically be themselves.